I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Let people, it's nice to see people out here. Billy Michael from Bethel, and I've been head of the local taxpayers group since 1986, so I've seen a lot of the changes. And this gentleman brought up Union Carbide. Those of us that remember the great Danbury State Fair, or Danbury Fair, and saw Union Carbide come to Danbury, have also systematically watched the state legislature destroy every characteristic of Connecticut that drew Union Carbide here. Over the last 35 years, the state legislature, one after another, made Connecticut a place that Union Carbide in 2013 would never want to come to. But in the 70s, we were a fabulous state. And the legislature has just incrementally just going on. And it was with Governor O'Neill, we went to the 8% tax, and then you had Riker with the income tax. It's one spending frenzy after another. And when you showed us that pie chart, and that lady asked about how many employees, you have 50,000 state employees. If you put that pie chart back up there and looked at that 20 billion, what percentage of that 20 billion is taken up by the salaries, benefits, pensions, health care of those 50,000 people? Now, in my town of Bethel, which is going to public hearing tomorrow night, about 85% of our budget is all personnel cost. Then you add your bonding. So, out of a $67 million budget, what can we talk about? What can the people actually in this democracy, our town meeting form of government, we have control over less and less of that budget. And then when you speak of the personnel costs, they say, well, what do you want to do? Look like Wisconsin? But you know what? Until people realize that 20 billion, 85% is probably personnel costs, and that Connecticut's got the highest bonded ratio, debt to individual taxpayer or something. I mean, you can talk about savings here and there. Maybe you could, that special transportation fund, maybe you could look at the empty heart buses that drive in front of my house all day and say, maybe we should cut back on an empty bus driving back and forth. But the personnel and the bonding, I mean, I really don't think you can do anything. I think you're helpless until you take on that. In binding arbitration, on the local level, we're killed. We're killed locally. And when Mr. McKinney, you were talking about older people with their cars and the devaluation of their car in a year and the mill rate, you know, their taxes go down. I'm getting there. I'm in my 60s, and I have old cars, but every year the mill rate goes up. So my 10 and 12-year-old car is a year older. The mill rate is up. I pay more. And this year, because Bethel had a devaluation, our property values plummeted. I've got a truck that I pay $175 taxes on. Next year, it's going to be $240. Isn't that, could you imagine? We've got 22,000 vehicles in Bethel. And all those vehicles are going to be a mother load of income for the town because the mill rate is going up dramatically because we had a devaluation. So old people are going to get slammed with their cars this year. And I don't want to see the car tax abolished by the governor without the ability to reduce spending by that amount. If we lost $4 million in revenue with Bethel, let us reduce spending by $4 million.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you doing that. I think that probably everybody in this room would like to do away with the car tax, including the three of us sitting up here. But you have to have a plan to change what you're going to do with the money that's currently there. And if Danbury has a $200 million budget and you're going to cut $11 million out of it in one fell swoop, you have to find a way to replace part of the spending. You can certainly do some creative spending cuts, but you can't just lay off teachers and police officers and firefighters without having a plan to replace it. And that's where Senator McKinney said that Governor Rell had a proposal on this 4 years ago, I think it was. and there was a replacement of some of that money. You asked in the pie, how much is salaries and benefits? Well, the pie doesn't tell us that. It just tells us as one separate piece of the pie. 11% is pension, health care, and the retirees. But when you look at the whole amount of state government funding, it's probably about 48% is all of the cost of salary, pensions, and benefits for state employees. And the rest of it is contracted services to hospitals, social services, and private providers. So I hope that was helpful.